Hello, welcome to studio release from my studio here in Oslo, Carl Berner. Today I'm gonna release artwork number 302, and the title is Paper Cups, 40 Acres and a Mule. So. Let me first say this work is part of the Res Ipsa compilation. Res Ipsa is artworks made in the wet filler directly. So it's sort of a traces or evidence of something that happened directly when I did the piece. Yes, and this is a work in the Paper Cup series. I've done quite a few of the Paper Cups works before, and it developed a little bit over the years. I started to do these works because 10 years ago you started to see a lot of people begging in the streets here in Norway, and I wasn't used to that because in Norway or Sweden, where I grew up, you usually didn't meet so much beggars or people begging in the streets. That was quite uncommon. But they changed some sort of regulations in the EU, so people from the poorer countries of Europe started to come here and beg in the streets, and so we were exposed more to poverty of the world, and that was kind of shocking in a bit, I would say, for me at least. So I had to deal with this and think a lot about it, and I use art to process my thoughts and emotions, and so I started to do this Paper Cup series as a response to that. And I used these ordinary paper cups to make imprints in the wet filler. And of course, these paper cups are like the tool for the people who are begging on the streets. They get them for free somewhere, and they just use it to collect money. Yeah, so the series was a lot about begging, and also about how begging in a capitalistic system could be seen as almost as a subversive act also, because in capitalism everything has to be measured and given a value, and when you get something for free, when you beg for something and you get it for free, it's kind of goes against the logic of capitalism in a way. So in that sense, you can see also begging as a subversive act, and it also like beggar monks in different religions like Buddhism is sort of outside the system in a sense. Yes, but this works kind of evolved, so it started to be also more about the material conditions. The paper cup, to me, started to become a symbol of the material conditions in the world, because money, right, is like the measurement of the material conditions. We need money to get by, to live our lives, and all. Yeah. So you can. So it was also about like the Marx idea about historical materialism, where these ideas that goes something about like. That it's not the struggle for different ideas that makes history. It's more like a struggle for the material conditions that kind of defines what history will be. But also to me it was about language, actually, of course. In a psychoanalytical sense, for groups to become subjects, to become agents with the power to act. They need to form practical demands or practical solutions to their demands. So they have to kind of move from the imaginary to the symbolic in a way. They have to, and in that sense, when they do that, when they kind of formulate these demands, put a word to it, and say that this is what we want, it goes through the material real, you can say, because and then the pureness of the intent gets somehow distorted or polluted, and it's not so easy to kind of to have total control of what this movement will do and where it will go, in a sense. And this is, I think, it's important also I think it's to become a subject and an agent of change. You need to go to that level. Otherwise, you will just be stuck in the imaginary and stuck in the ideal, and you don't really have the power to act in a sense. Yes. So the title here, the subtitle is 40 Acres and a Mule. And that's also the title of Spike Lee's movie company, and I guess he has taken it also from like me, because 40 Acres and a Mule, it has become like a symbol for reparations to the black people after slavery was abolished, or the unfulfilled demands for reparations. You should say, and the history of it is in the Civil War. At the end of the Civil War, General Sherman gave something called the Special Field Order Number 15, and he did it after a meeting with the representatives from the black communities, and he kind of asked them actually what they wanted for themselves after slavery was abolished. And this was kind of a radical thing to do, actually, in these days. And they wanted most land for themselves, and they wanted land not scattered all around the United States, but they wanted a separate land. And that was this special field order that started to do this, actually. They started to give 40 acres of land to every freed slave. So they started coming here, I think it was in South Carolina, to get land. But unfortunately, when Lincoln, who signed this order as well, was assassinated, and his successor, he revoked this order, and all the land that was confiscated through the Civil War were returned back to the slave owners and the plantation owners. And you can of course only imagine what would happen if they had gotten these 40 acres of land. And this with the mule that came later. I don't really know the story about that. Because probably the history of the United States would, up to now, would look completely different. Yeah. So I think I want to just say here also, when I do works about racism like this, and me as a white guy, I feel it's also important to talk about racism out from a political aspect, from my own point of view, and not to expose the sufferings of other people that I don't belong to as a group. and sort of define other people's experience. So I try to do art about this, about the political consequences and the political aspect of it. But I think this thing about material retaliation or compensation for damage and hurt that has been done to groups of people is very important. Words and recognition are also important, of course, but sometimes they are not enough. They can become just words in a way, because language, like I said, becomes real only when it gets converted into physical material reality, when it gets used in practice. And there's a difference between when two individuals. When I have done something wrong to an individual, of course I can meet that meet that other person in a room, and I can say I'm sorry directly to that person, and that is a physical reality. But when groups of people, they can't meet in that sense. They are more the subject who is speaking is lesser defined. So we need to be more careful with how this works. And so like when with an official excuse, for example, from the state to a group of people, to the black community, for example, that of course is good, but it also had to be supported by something concrete, material, I think, to really have a value. It needs to have a cost. Otherwise, it will be like when you have an intention to do something, but you don't follow it up by action. Then it just stays as an idea or a thought. It doesn't really have any effect, and you don't get the reconciliation that was that you wanted. Yeah, so this is basically my ideas behind this work, and I think now it's time to just to show it. So this is how it looks. I will, just a second. I will give you some close-ups. Here it is from the side. Yes. And here is the lone one. Okay, so I'm gonna put the camera back. Yes, like you can see here, for composition I just simply put the imprints standing on the bottom here and just going up like that and to the right side. So it's a very simple ideal composition. I like to work with composition in a way that the kind of where I don't have so many choices to do, aesthetic choices. I just follow a system. But this one is, of course, a little bit hanging along there and placed a little bit more by chance. So here is, of course, 40 marks, and that's the one mule, I guess. When I did this, I first made a mistake. There was actually 5 more imprints over here, so it would have been 45 acres and a mule. But actually I took it away and edited this work, and this is very rare for me. I rarely edit any work because I kind of welcome mistakes and want them. That's usually a good thing, I think, when something unforeseen is happening. But in this case, with the 45 acres, I thought that was a little bit too far off, so I took them away. But you can still see here, like this group here is slightly higher than here, so this is some irregularities going on. And these things I kind of like because it gives tension to the image, I think. Yeah, maybe you can see also here that it was not my intention, but in a way there's something about majority and minority here also, I guess, with this tight group and this lone figure here. Yeah, so I think this is it, and if there is any questions, I will of course answer them. So thank you for watching, and goodbye.